This is the second redoing of some of my articles that I posted months ago that some of y'all might not have gotten the chance to read. So I'm putting it in video form. And that is concerning, am I crazy to do what I'm doing? Am I going to make it? Have I done anything like this before? And to answer the third question is, yes, I have done something like this before, and I'm going to share a few of those with you right now. Whether I will finish it or whatever, that we'll have to see. But as you know, this is called my 60 trip. So obviously in a few weeks I turn 60 years old. I know I look 45, but I am almost 60. So in 1977, I was just out of high school. I did my first crazy trip. I hopped on a bicycle in South Texas where I grew up and put on a wooden backpack that my brother Tom had made. Yeah, it was kind of heavy, not excessively heavy, but got on a bike, hunched over, took off for about 40 miles across the Rio Grande Valley of South Texas into a what we knew is just an average heavy wind, probably 35, 40 miles an hour. Into that wind the whole way. Was exhausted by the time I got there. I got to the state park just a mile from the Rio Grande River in Mission, Texas. And if you know anything about South Texas, the mosquitoes are big enough to carry away small babies. And they are by the millions. So even though I had a good sleeping bag, by that next morning I was physically exhausted. I was eating up like crazy. And sadly I had to call my father and say, I give up. Please come pick me up. And he graciously did. So let me jump forward 2 years after I was in college, my second year of college. I did another smaller trip. Me and my roommate, David, we got on a bicycle one Friday afternoon, headed about 35 miles out, spent the night with a friend, and did another 60-something miles the next day for a football game, which we won over my older brother's alma mater, Howard Payne University, which in those days we beat them every single year. But the year before that, I did my first crazy trip. I was still just 18 years old, and I had just finished my freshman year of college. I was tired of running across the state of Texas on Greyhound. So in San Angelo, Texas, which is pretty much in the dead center of the state, I hopped on a bicycle with very little preparation and headed home. Home was about 470 miles straight trip without any side trips. And so I took off. I had two people that had promised me a place to stay if I came through there. One was a girl that I went to college with, and her father was the county sheriff in Kimball County, Texas, in the city of Junction. So that was my second and third night there. That's the first place I ever went to a jail. There was 2 rooms and 1 inmate. To give you an idea of how big the Kimball County Jail was at that time. And so then after that, went through the major portion of the Texas Hill Country and got to Kerrville, Texas, where I spent 2 nights with my future roommate, David. And from there, got to San Antonio, spent a few days with my aunt and uncle, my mom's sister, and spent one night with a former pastor of mine, the man that baptized me when I was 10 years old, and then 2 nights at a summer camp that I spent much of my childhood at. And the last day of my trip, I found out the sad news that an uncle of mine had passed away, and my parents begged me just get home. So I went about 400 miles and left the bike with my mom's cousin in Kingsville, Texas, and rode Greyhound across the King Ranch, if you've ever heard of the King Ranch. And the whole trip I had never gotten rained on, never got a flat tire, and that day on the bus, riding 70 miles an hour, got rained on for about 30 solid minutes of just a downpour. I would have been miserable trying to ride my bike through this King Ranch, which at that time would have been about 85 or 90 miles without any store, drinking water, anything. So I got home in a good fashion, and so 2 years after that, in 1980, this same David that I roomed with and a third roommate, Patrick, and I took off from Fort Worth, Texas, and we were heading to Knoxville, Tennessee, where his brother had lived. Well, his brother still lives at that time. And so we took off, heading east, just wandering through East Texas and Louisiana with just a general direction of northeast. We stayed with a friend of his one night, stayed a few nights with my brother in East Texas, where he taught college at the time. And then we got into Louisiana, sort of by accident. We were going to go into Arkansas, but because of bike repairs, we had to go back down to Shreveport, and from there we headed east. And the road that we more or less had to take was horrible. There was creases everywhere. It was narrow, and it literally just beat us to death after about 3 days. So at that point in Ruston, Louisiana, we made the decision. The next day we got to Monroe, Louisiana, finding a Greyhound bus station. We broke the bikes apart, put them in boxes, and we rode the rest of the way to Knoxville on Greyhound. From there we borrowed Patrick's brother's car from Knoxville here and rode up into Virginia, where my dad was from, and spent time with some of my family there. Came back, and then we drove his car back to Texas. So we had a great 4-week trip that we'll never forget. But do I know that I'll finish this walk? No. Do I have it mentally in my mind now that, yeah, I can do this? Of course I do. And with God's blessing, I will finish that in a few weeks and have a lifetime of stories to share. So, thank you for your time.